Hey guys, Sean here. Welcome to the F1 word and to some post-quali waffle for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Yes, we're back doing this again. If you missed it after, where we last time? Silverstone. That was it. Silverstone. It's just a chance for me to talk about Formula One and what we've just watched and look ahead to tomorrow's race, but it will end up wherever it ends up, as it always does. I will take lots of your questions as well and lots of your comments. A nice interactive stream, nice and relaxed on this Sunday. I'm going to say evening. 6 o'clock, I think we can call that evening. I don't know what officially evening is anymore, but there you go. Whatever, and don't worry, we'll be done in time for the IndyCar because I'm really into my IndyCar at the minute, which is quite concerning because I'm watching too much racing. Is there such a thing as too much racing? Chat says no. Absolutely not. But yeah, get your questions and comments and I'll come to you throughout. But what a session. What a session. You know, of all the things I predicted this weekend or thought could happen this weekend, I was not expecting to be sat here talking about Lewis Hamilton getting pole number 104. I don't know why, even though, thinking about it now, it was obvious that Mercedes were going to be in the mix because Mercedes go well in Hungary. George Russell was on pole last year. Lewis Hamilton loves this track. It was always going to be Hamilton pole, surely. No doubt about it. I was about to choke. Sorry, 2 seconds. Wow, that came out of nowhere, nearly choking to death, but I'm fine. Yeah, was not expecting that this weekend. So massive congratulations to Lewis Hamilton. Just to answer a question from last week, by the way, the reason that last week Verstappen wasn't on the thumbnail and this week Hamilton isn't on the thumbnail, I want to avoid spoilers when I do these streams because they're quite soon after quali. I know not everybody gets to watch the qualifying live and not everyone catches the highlights until later, so that's why we've got Ricciardo on there for now, although that's a spoiler in itself. We'll get to him in a few minutes. Let's kick off though. I'll have a look at the top 10 as we did last time out from qualifying. Lewis Hamilton, like I say, on pole position, a 1:16.609. Is that about 4/10 quicker than last year's pole time? I think something like that. I think it was a 17.3 last year, wasn't it? It was around there. Max Verstappen in second place. Ted said he looked cross as he left the interview pen. I think he thinks he should have improved on his final run, which is fair enough. He probably should have done. Fresh tyres, track at its best. We can have that conversation, of course. Lando Norris, third place for McLaren. Oscar Piastri in fourth. Norris, 85 thousandths or 8.5 off the fastest time of the day. He seems really disappointed, like really happy with third, but I think he thinks he could and should have had pole today. We will talk about that. Oscar Piastri fourth for McLaren as well. 0.3 of the fastest time, couple of tenths off his teammate. But I think that confirms McLaren on fast and medium corner speed tracks are back. Let's see how they get on at a tight, twisty circuit. But they're looking good. I can't wait for Singapore. Could be interesting. Surprise of qualifying, without doubt for me, Zhou Guanyu. Fifth place, only 3.5 tenths just over off of pole position. He even topped Q2 today. Fantastic performance from him. Where has this come from Alfa? I know they've got new power units this weekend, but it can't all be that, surely. So well done to Zhou. Charles Leclerc, the first Ferrari in sixth place. If you know in chat, let me know. But he did say during qualifying on the radio, let's stay calm, but come on. Was that a traffic thing or was it a tyre thing or... Be interested to know what he says about that on Twitter, actually. I'll have a look in a bit. Valtteri Bottas, seventh, to cap a brilliant day for Alfa Romeo. Fernando Alonso, only in eighth place today. But only in eighth place by 1,000th of a second. It's really tight in particular between Piastri and, you'd say Hülkenberg as well, but certainly Perez, which is a 10th between them. So it's not a terrible position. It's a terrible position, but he's not terribly off the pace of those around him, if that makes sense. Sergio Perez finally into Q3 for the first time since Miami. However, it is only ninth place. Yes, same caveat as I said for Fernando Alonso, but he is in the RB19, so I still think it should be higher than ninth. Whether this is an improvement or not, he should still be higher than that. And Nico Hülkenberg, rounding out the top 10. That guy has absolutely nailed qualifying at times this year, hasn't he? He's clearly got it right. So well done to him for top 10 for Haas. So potentially some points on the board, although Haas tend to go backwards on a Saturday, don't they? But 7 teams in the top 10. And an interesting stat from Crofty, the top 10 covered by just over 0.5 of a second, 0.577. That equals the record for the closest ever top 10 in Formula One that was set in Brazil 2003. So there you go. Nice little stat for you to kick things off with there. So yeah, really enjoyable session. And it's kind of nice going into tomorrow because I still think, sorry, Hamilton fans, Norris fans and co, I still think going into tomorrow, Max Verstappen is comfortably the favourite. Well, not comfortably the favourite, but solidly the favourite. Maybe we'll see something similar to Silverstone where they were quite close and he still won the race, but Norris was in the mix for a while and Hamilton was up there too. But I still think he goes in tomorrow as the favourite. But it's nice to go into tomorrow with some excitement down to turn one again, if that makes sense. And there's a lot of, Sky are starting to put that out there as they do, or what's going to happen at turn one tomorrow. Probably nothing. That's going to get clipped up. That's going to come back and bite me in the arse, isn't it? Probably nothing. It'll be fine. Massive accident between the two of them. But I think there are a couple of things to bear in mind for tomorrow dirty side of the grid for Max. P3 is a really good place to start in Hungary, so Lando's going to have a nice tow. We could be looking at 3 abreast into turn 1, which will be absolutely fantastic, and Piastri leading at the end of the first lap after a massive accident and goes on to win it, and we all go, wow, that was absolutely incredible. So, yeah, just I can't wait for tomorrow. First, I always look forward to Formula 1, I do. It doesn't matter how the grid looks, but really can't wait for that battle tomorrow. And turn 1 is going to be a lot of fun, and the first few laps are as well. Ted was talking in his notebook before I went live about potentially Verstappen letting Hamilton have turn 1. Does anybody know the last time Max Verstappen let a driver have a corner? Or the last time Lewis Hamilton let a driver have a corner? That's not really how either of those drivers or most of the drivers work. You're there to race, aren't you? So I'm not sure he's going to let him have the corner. I get the point he's making. He's got a championship to think of. He's not going to stick his nose up the inside and risk damage on lap 1. That said, when Hamilton and Verstappen are on track together, there seems to be a lot less room left by both parties, I'd argue. That'll get me in trouble with both sets of fans. So that's that covered. Nice one. But yeah, great stuff. Really enjoyed that. Really looking forward to tomorrow. And it ends this run of pole positions. I think the last driver on pole that wasn't a Red Bull was Charles Leclerc, wasn't it, in Baku? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 races on pole for Red Bull, Perez in Miami and Verstappen the rest. So that's ended that one. And I'm just wondering, there is that talk at the moment about, is this the start of Red Bull maybe falling back a bit? And is this the start of a resurgence from Mercedes? I would urge some caution because, and I'm not trying to dump on what Lewis Hamilton has done today or what anybody's done today. That's not who I am. I won't do that. But Mercedes were on pole in Hungary last year. Mercedes was strong in Spain and then they fell away at other tracks. So is it that they've made a massive step forward and Red Bull have suddenly dropped off? Or is it that it's just a good circuit for Mercedes? We also have to bear in mind, and this will probably upset some Lewis Hamilton fans, and I'm sorry to say it, but if Max Verstappen improves on his final lap, which he feels he should have done, and he probably should have done, he's on pole. So I'm not convinced this is the doom and gloom that some people on certain Formula One coverage seem to be calling it for Red Bull. I'll be realistic about it. I think it does feel like in the last few races the gap has come down. I will say that, but I'm just waiting for a tomorrow or a Belgium, for example, where Verstappen sticks it on pole in Spa and then disappears by 30 seconds and everyone goes, oh, there you go, we'll carry on then. Which is fine. That's, they've built the car. They're doing the job they have to do. But yeah, not to take away from what Hamilton did there, because that is a mega lap. And even his lap wasn't perfect. And that's why I said when I was going through the order there, Lando Norris seems to think he's missed out on pole position today because he feels that, what was he, less than a 10th off? And he feels like he left a 10th on the table with a little issue in the final corner. So Norris actually thinks he could have been on pole today. That would have been, and I thought he had, a bit like Silverstone. He'd gone purple, I think, in the middle sector. Verstappen wasn't improving. I was just like, he's done it. He's done it again. I need to stop saying that because last time I said he's done it, he didn't. So I'm jinxing Lando, which is terrible. I don't believe in the jinx, but we'll play the game. I'm jinxing Lando, but phenomenal lap from him. He thinks he could have had pole. Verstappen thinks he should have had pole. Hamilton was surprised to get pole, so it was a really enjoyable session. I know I've said that like 4 times, but it's what I love. Qualifying in Formula One is rarely dull. Even if you've got teams out there locking out the front row, there's still so much going on behind in qualifying, and there's always that you never know, that little thing in the back of your mind that's waiting for a Lando Norris to put a lap in like that, or a Zhou Guan Yu to surprise you, or wear a Ferrari. God knows, they don't know, but great stuff. Let's see what you guys are saying as I sit here just waffling. This is literally the point of these streams, by the way. If you're not interested in some idiot like me just sat here as a fan talking like mates in a pub, that's the idea. We're sat in the pub I've got orange and mango squash. Fancy. Shopping came today. Sat in the pub on soft drinks because we're legends, talking about Formula One. Thank you very much to just changing my name for your super chat. Says, I have a bad feeling Tsunoda's time in F1. He hasn't impressed me. What do you think? Impressed by Zhou and McLaren. Thank you so much for your support there, mate, with super chat. Apparently you can heart super chats now, so I will like your super chat. Thank you very much, mate. I will talk about Tsunoda and Ricciardo in a bit. We'll get there. I promise I will. I won't forget about your super chat, so appreciate that one. Didn't think you liked Hungary, Sean, says Clan. So I didn't used to like Hungary. It's a thing that goes back to Well, not that I didn't like Hungary. I like Formula One, so I'll watch it on any track, but it wasn't one of my favourites because it didn't always... It's always been... It's weird because it's always been a really good track that drivers have enjoyed, but it didn't always throw up great racing. Whereas the last few years, it's been one of the better races of the season. So whether that's to do with, I don't know, the cars race better around there, or whether conditions just work out, or if it's just that I've grown up a little bit. And it's not all, when I was younger, it was all about, who's winning and that was it. Maybe I've just, as a 37-year-old, finally grown up and realised that Hungary's not that bad. So, and I'm glad it's staying on the calendar as well. If you missed that news, it's on the calendar now till 2032. Apparently was on the calendar until 27, and it's got another 5 years now, and it's going to get a new pit building and main grandstand as well. So fantastic news to it staying. And it's a win for the traditional tracks as well. Nice to see a traditional track staying on the calendar and not being replaced by a street track in the middle of a city somewhere. I think Madrid looks like it's probably going to happen at some point. But yeah, I am AJ, a whole 37, mate. It's not old. I know there are people here who are older than me who keep telling me off for it, but you're as old as you feel, and wow, do I feel 92 some days. So ever since 2019, it's been a banger, says Josiah. Absolutely. There were some good races as well during the Mercedes early domination years. I think 2016 was quite a good race. Was that where Ricciardo won? I'm trying to think off the top of my head. That was a really enjoyable race. So, yeah, it's been good. It's been good. 98 was a great race, Nick, for strategy, wasn't it? With Schumacher. 99 was really not great. 93 was pretty dominant, as everything was in 93 for Williams. 97 was... We'll do this quickly. 97 for me gets put down as a great race in Hungary because of what happened at the front with Damon Hill surprising everybody. But I'm not saying it was a bad race. It just didn't always throw out great racing. That's not me saying that Hungary's a terrible race or a terrible track. It just didn't always throw out great racing. It's not. It's no more than that. There's excitement like, will Perez make Q3? He did make Q3, Del. He's back. He's back and he's 9th place. Wow, only 4 places above a guy who's apparently put him under pressure. So, yeah. Probably the max for Parallel Universe, not our max, says Klein. I assume that's to do with the... Have you ever known any max let anybody have turn 1? No. And let's see what else you're saying. It's one of the few tracks not to really been changed since it was used, says Blackhawk. So, Turn 1 got reprofiled a bit, didn't it? But it is very much the same track. It's not changed much at all. And nice to have some excitement in quali. Amazing lap from LH44, LN03. I think that's LN04. And McLaren are impressive. George Russell missed out big time, says Ronnie. And I saw one that I wanted to read and it's disappeared now. 2014 was it the one I'm thinking of with Ricciardo's win? Yeah, that was good stuff. But hey, Gingerfest as well. I know you've been trying to get to a live stream for a while, so it's good to see you there. But that's all I want to say, really. There's nothing to say that hasn't been said by pundits with a lot more information than me, really, around the top 3. Like I say, all 3 of them. Hamilton's surprised, feels there was still more time on the table. Verstappen thinks he should have improved, so there's more time on the table. Lando thinks there's more time on the table as well. So, really, tomorrow's going to be great. And massive shout out as well to Oscar Piastri. I know 2/10 to Norris, you might say, looks like a big gap, but I mean, it's his first year in Formula One after a year out against a driver who people really think is going to be a future world champion one day. We'll see, of course. Not going to be anytime soon. He's going to need a car that can give him that, but he's got a lot of potential still as Lando, and he's a very quick guy. So for Oscar to be that close to him, I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. But for me, and we'll come to it later for you guys, but for me, qualifier of the day is Zhou Guanyu. And that's, people will be like, well, what about Hamilton's lap? What about Norris and Piastri? All of them have admitted they weren't perfect. So Zhou Guanyu, I don't think could have done much more today. Topped Q2. Absolutely stunning performance in P5. Only 3.5 tenths just over off pole. That's brilliant. Where's that come from for the Alpha? Have they got updates this weekend? I think they had a few updates, but they've got the new power units. But the car just seems to look fantastic around there. And I'm so surprised. Bottas was topping the session at one point in Q1 or 2. I mean, wasn't it? And what could he have done if he had not been held by traffic? Could he have topped a session as well? I know Q1 and Q2 don't really matter, but it's still nice to see them up there. So well done to them. And that's, for me, it's Zhou. I know there's been some great performances today, but absolutely unbelievable. just because I think the most unbelievable thing for me is that the highest A on the grid is an Alfa Romeo. I was absolutely adamant that Aston Martin were going to nail it this year, and here we are. It's it's just not working for Aston, although it is close. Thank you to Not From 63rd for your super chats. That's where the Ricciardo haters at. How about you go choke on a big one, plebs? Lovely. Thank you very much for your support. Bit unnecessary, but he's out-qualified Yuki Tsunoda in his first outing. We'll get to Ricciardo in a bit, but thank you for your support on the super chat. But, don't be like that. I can't bother with people like that on the channel. So, what was I saying? So, great stuff from Alfa. But it's Aston Martin, the big negative surprise, I guess, of the day, if that makes sense. I don't really understand it. Earlier this season, Fernando Alonso was earmarking, I think it was Monaco, Hungary, and Singapore as races they had a shot at winning at. And all the talk last time at Silverstone regarding Hungary was that it should be a better track for them. And I know that, as I said at the start, he's 8th place, Fernando, and he's only a couple of thousandths off being higher. But I really did think we were looking at a running order this weekend of something like Red Bull, Aston Martin, and then McLaren and Mercedes in the mix behind them, maybe Ferrari. But it's really off the pace today. And the word from Ted Kravitz, where's my notes? I always lose my notes at this point, and then I have to remember to read them. Nothing actually in the notes from Ted on Aston Martin, so maybe not much to tell. See if they've put their things out to explain something. Fernando says he was happy with the car in qualifying after making tweaks to the setup. Average time for us to pole position has been 4 to 5 tenths of a second this season. So if you look at our result today, it was a normal qualifying. Yeah, that's fair, I suppose, but I was just expecting more from Alfa. Pack was so close, so a 10th here or there makes a huge difference. Again, we've kind of covered that one. Performance is better than our results suggest. I think I said that at the start as well. Looking ahead, difficult to overtake, so I think it will be tough tomorrow. Try to extract the maximum and all that kind of stuff. Lance frustrated. No surprises there. It's a Saturday, always frustrated on a Saturday. He says new qualifying format. We'll get to that in a minute. It did make things slightly more challenging, but I don't mind that, and it's the same for all of the drivers. It's an incredibly tight pack with fine margins between all of the teams. Mike Crack, it says, has the potential to be higher than they were today. Some of our competitors have closed the gap and found some speed. Always get a tight grid here, and those small margins made the difference. So it's all about small margins at Aston Martin, I suppose, is the the summary from that press release. But yeah, it's just very, very strange that unless this was this inevitable in a way? Thinking about it off just randomly coming to be there, was it always inevitable that Aston Martin were going to fall off because they made such a huge leap over? Don't ever forget they were 7th last year, and they've made a huge leap over the winter. So they spent a lot of money, a lot of CFD time developing that car. They were, P2 or 3 when the testing time reset, which means that they're going to have less than they had at the start of the season. So was it always inevitable that they were going to fall off around this time, and that teams like Mercedes, McLaren with more CFD time and all of that, and a car that needs improving, were always going to take a big step forward, and they were going to fall back a little bit? But I think whatever happens between now and the end of the season for Aston Martin, I'm not going all doom and gloom on them. It's been one qualifying session where I'm surprised they were not where I wanted them to be. But whatever happens between now and Abu Dhabi, it's been an incredible year for them, and they totally deserve. I want them to get top 3. I think out of those top 4, I don't think McLaren are in this conversation for top 3. Although they are very strong at the minute, but I think there's a big gap to overturn. But out of Mercedes, Aston Martin, and Ferrari, I want Aston Martin top 3. I think they've been consistent for most of this year. They excelled at the start of the season. Even now, we're talking about a difficult run for Aston Martin that includes, let's say, since Spain, a 7th, a 2nd, a 5th, and a 7th. I mean, that's not horrendous from Fernando Alonso at all, is it? When you think of where they were last year. And even Lance Stroll, 16th, 9th, and, 14th. But they're not awful results for Aston Martin, just not great compared to where they were at the start of the season. So I'd love them to get top 3 this year, definitely. But Yeah, don't AJ. I always have to emphasize the mic in mic crack because I'm mentally 12 and I find it hilarious, but there you go. So disappointed by Aston Martin, but I don't think, I might think about it a bit more tonight, but maybe a bit inevitable this was going to happen, but also they're not, as they're saying, fine margins. They're not a million miles away from, I mean, what is Fernando? A tenth of a second, 0.426 puts him, a tenth of a second puts him fifth on the grid. So it's not like their car's suddenly a dog or anything like that. It's just those fine margins. I'm looking forward to Spa to see where everybody is a bit more. We should get a better idea in Spa where people are. This is always tight here, so there you go. Checo will keep seat for rest of 23. 24 is another question, says Clansome. James Rich says Freddie Vasseur likes chicken chasseur. Lovely. Space says, to my mind, the Aston Martin is a car that isn't at its best on such tracks. I was more surprised by its performance at Silverstone. I think for me, Space, it's just that they were earmarking tracks like Hungary as where they'll be strongest and they're not. But then again, third in Bahrain, that's not like Hungary. Saudi Arabia is not like Hungary. Australia is not, is it? And they were getting podiums there, so maybe that was just not. Maybe they were wrong on that. I'm calling a team who has a million times more data than I have wrong is a bit cheeky, but you know what I mean. And Joe-fan here, we are having a blast today, says Sonny. Absolutely well done. Red Raven says, don't think so, Sean. That car's still a very strong upgrade over what they had last year, and they're just 2/10 off. If McLaren can make such a jump, so can Aston. Yeah, that's kind of what I've come back round to. You know how I work, Red Raven. I have an idea, I vocalise it, then after I've said it, I come back round and realise that that's not the case, and maybe I've been a bit harsh. Thank you again to Not From 63rd, says, hey, what do you think about the mess of car impeding one another starting lap? Do you see Norris overtaking everyone like an a-hole, and Gasly also? The impeding it annoys me because I get that they want space and they've got to make space, but ultimately it's sloppy, especially in like Q1. It's sloppy. On a faster track, it's dangerous. We've seen some really scary stuff at times. It's just all very unnecessary. I know they need the space to do the lap, but then, as Martin Brundle points out, there are plenty of minutes in the session. There are plenty of very clever people in the teams that they could space things better. And this is what George Russell's kind of was getting at. He said, we'll talk about George then, actually, because he was a massive disappointment today in 18th place. He couldn't get the best out of the hards, was what he said after the session. But mostly his frustration is the positioning of the car. They were out of sync throughout the whole session to everybody else. So when he came to do his final flying lap, he's got cars coming behind him who are quicker. He's got cars trying to get past him to make themselves space, and he's trying to find space, and he's wide at turn one, and it all just falls, I think he said 3/10 down by that first corner. So it's wide at the final corner, then down 3/10 by the first corner. So it's the positioning from the team, and they've got it wrong. And I kind of liked, actually, that George said he's not blaming any driver for overtaking him. He'd have done the same. He blames the fact that they shouldn't have been in there in the first place, which is absolutely true. So I don't like it. I think it's sloppy. It makes everyone look a bit stupid, but it's always going to happen when you get to the end of a qualifying session, whether it's Q1 or Q3. If we had all 20 cars out there in Q3, it'd be exactly the same, because you want to be the best track conditions, best tyre conditions you can in every session. So everyone's going to go out right at the end, and it's just going to cause absolute chaos. It's 20 cars trying to squeeze into, it sounds crazy, 20 cars in 5 kilometers. I mean, you think they'd be able to pull it off, but they're all on the same piece of tarmac at the same time. It happens. I just don't like it, but there's not really a solution. You can have minimum times of arrival or whatever, and you can try and police it as much as you want, but ultimately drivers are still going to try and find as much space as possible while still being able to set their car up, so or get their tyres in the window. So it's daft, but Formula One is daft sometimes. Definitely. You have an entire lap to find space. Why are you waiting till the last 2 corners, this Gingerfest? Exactly. You got 5 kilometers to do it, but I think it's about, they want to spend that time, don't they, getting the car in the window with the tyres and things, and then they realise, I need space, and then they back off in the final 2 corners. But I'm not convinced that, Bottas and Stroll, I think, are at the stewards, because I'm adamant Bottas was impeded, because he was flying on one of his laps. And in fact, we have a decision, actually, on this one. Let's have a look. No further action. So Stroll impeding car 77. That's Bottas. Stewards heard from the driver heard from Lance Stroll, heard from Bottas. Bottas was on a fast lap while approaching turn 13 when he encountered a series of cars that were bunched up in front. Of those cars, Stroll was on the racing line and therefore impeded his progress on a fast lap. So he did impede him. At the hearing, Bottas said that his lap was already compromised when he approached turn 13, and this was exacerbated by Stroll being on the racing line thereafter. However, both he and his team representative said they did not think Stroll was wholly to blame for the fact that he was impeded because of the situation on track at the time. Stroll attempted to, but was prevented from going off the racing line as there was Gasly on his left, closing in on Russell, and Bottas was approaching from the right. God, this is getting me head around this one. About the same time, Russell and a series of other cars were being overtaken on the left by Norris. The result of this was that Stroll had to remain on the racing line and Bottas had to abort his lap. So my read of that is Stroll did impede Bottas, but there was nothing he could have done about it, basically. Is that where we're at? I think that's how I'm reading that. Stroll impeded him, but there was nothing he could do about it, so he's not got a penalty for it. So, I mean, that's fair enough. It was chaotic at that final corner, and I know it's not how the rules work, but I think if you're impeding, or if you're investigating a driver for impeding like Lance Stroll, then and you give him a penalty, then I think you need to be talking to the other drivers as well. Not necessarily penalties, but having a chat about how you're leaving cars like Stroll and Bottas in that situation. Was chat not working for a while? It was working for me. Yeah. I'm just going to keep an eye on it. I think it is working now. It seems to be working now. A few people saying it wasn't working. So... Yeah, Liam says, what mistakes did Lando make on his final lap? Final corner. I've not found a specific quote from him yet, but he was final corner was all that he said when I was reading through it or listening to his stuff on TV. So there was time on the table. So I guess mistake is harsh, but there was time on the table in the final corner. So yeah, and interesting as well that Lewis Hamilton said that it felt like his first ever pole, and I was kind of like, that's mad. But then I kind of get it now because Saudi Arabia 2021 was a long time ago. And let's not forget, for one reason or another, that was a long winter as well. So it was a very long time ago that Lewis Hamilton was last on pole position. Russell's had a pole and a win since then. So, yeah. Crazy. Was it just... Yeah, I think so, Liam. That's the only thing I've seen on Norris was that the final corner, there was time on the table. So, yeah. Should we talk about the new quali tyre rule? That's what I've got written in my notes next. So we may as well. I was going to go through a bit more of the order, but I don't really want to do that without reactions. So what do we reckon then? In fact, let's do a poll, and then I'll give you my thoughts. Oh, this means typing and talking. Oh, I need some elevator music when I'm typing or something like that so that I can pretend. So what did you think of new quali? I have to talk and type. Seriously, it's hilarious writing scripts. So let's say it was great. It was okay. Yeah. Great, okay. Crap. Waste of time. So great, okay. Didn't change much. And get rid. Oh, you can't have get rid. So it didn't change much. Well, didn't change anything. It's the final one. I pressed the wrong button. Sorry. So, yeah. It's... I think from a viewer's point of view, and this is someone that, been watching for more than 30 years. So maybe from the outside looking in, if you're a new fan, maybe it does add a bit of confusion to it. If you think it was terrible, just say terrible in the chat. And I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll do a little thing. But I didn't think, from a viewer's perspective, it really made a difference, but it didn't really affect my viewing pleasure of it, if that makes sense. If you ever get pleasure from that sort of thing, then fair enough. But it's not, using the hard tie, the medium, or the soft, it doesn't really affect us. I'm trying to word this the right way, because it does affect us, because we're watching it and it affects the enjoyment of it, because of drivers are going out there putting their laps in. Each session changes a little bit. It didn't. Yeah, do you know what? Jack says, I wouldn't say terrible, but I would say pointless. Yeah. Pointless from a watching it on TV perspective. Yeah. From an engineer's perspective, it definitely wasn't. They weren't overly thrilled with it. And from a sustainability point of view, it's, they're trying to do something, which I guess means it's not pointless. But then, as Lewis Hamilton said afterwards, and as I think Martin Brundle made the point, and I believe Toto Wolff has since made the point, or did make the point before that, you go into every race weekend in places like Abu Dhabi with several sets of intermediates and wets. So if you want to push for sustainability, is there anything we can do there? The trouble is you can't not take the inters and softs with you, because if it does absolutely chuck it down, then you can't go racing. So you have to take the wet tyres with you, but maybe it's really difficult. It's really difficult to try to work out what you do with the wets, because we all know, we had a bit of drizzle in Abu Dhabi a couple of years ago, didn't we? But we all know that it's probably not going to rain hard enough in Abu Dhabi in December or November this year, December next year, to warrant needing the wet tyres. So why take them? But then if it does absolutely hammer it down, you can't go racing. But then, having said that, do they ever go racing on the wet tyres, really? So but you know a point. You know in your head that it's probably not going to rain heavily enough for the wets in Bahrain, so why take them? But if you don't take them and it does rain, then everybody looks really stupid, and you're going, why didn't you take them? That's the problem, isn't it? It probably won't, but it could, and that's the issue. So I understand what they're trying to do, but then, as Martin Brundle, I think it was Martin Brundle, said, if they want to just take 11 sets of tyres, then just take 11 sets of tyres. You don't need to mandate each session of qualifying. Just say it's 11 sets. Or if the teams don't like that, compromise at 12. You're still making a step in the right direction, and then people can use the softs in every session if they want, but they're not going to have any fresh ones for the race. Or they can use all the mediums, so they're not going to get any of them for the race. So it then becomes the team's prerogative which tyres they want to use. So just say, we'll just take 11. We'll take 11 sets. I'd maybe change it and do 2 hard, 4 medium, and 5 soft, but just do that. That's it. I don't think it needs to be as forced or as complicated as this is. It doesn't bother me that they're doing it. It doesn't make a huge difference to me. And it did kind of feel like the session was ramping up a bit more jeopardy with each session. And now we go into tomorrow with Lando Norris being the only driver on the grid who has a fresh set of medium tyres. So that makes tomorrow interesting. It's really tricky. To try and balance that out. I know what they're trying to do, but just take 11 sets or what. It had pros and cons. I wouldn't totally say pointless, but I'll tell you what, here we go. If they ditch this after this weekend, I don't care. If they keep it, it's not going to ruin my enjoyment of the sport, and I'm not going to stop watching it. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's going to be. If the race is a bit dull tomorrow, this is going to be the main talking point of the weekend. Will be, oh, what about that tyre thing on Saturday? But I don't think it's even that big of a deal. But it's. I was going to say that about Pirelli. Their heart's in the right place. They're trying to do something. We should support that. But at the same time, again, as Martin Brundle said, just take 11 sets or 12 sets, and then you're done, aren't you? And then people can use what they want. If they want to use softs in Q1, Q2, Q3, that's fine. If they want to use hards in all of those sessions, weird, but okay. Hards in Q3 and you still get pole, that'd be quite incredible. That's kind of where I'm at with it. It's not. That's a lot of waffle just to say that I'm. See, I don't. If I was sat on a sofa and somebody asked me that question, like in a pub, like I keep saying, if they'd said, "What did you think of that?" my response would have been, "I don't really care." But I don't want to say that to you because you're here to listen to my opinion on it. But it doesn't really bother me either way. It's not something that's going to ruin Formula One for me. If the sprints ain't going to ruin Formula One for me, then this ain't. That's for sure. And it is a sprint weekend in Belgium as well, which I know Eamon will be thrilled about, definitely, if he pops up later in the comments. There'll be a couple of others as well. But Red Raven says, wild suggestion, safe tyres allow using mixed tyre sets like in WEC. Fair enough. Thank you again to Not From 63rd for another super chat. Thank you for your support tonight, mate. It says, last one for one of my favourite F1 channels. Thank you. Did you see the spray guards they tested? Is that detachable? If 10 laps in the tracks dries, what then? I have seen it. I was going to see if I could get a picture for you, but it was released to sort of set media, and I didn't want to just go and assume that meant I could steal it without permission. So I'm not going to put it in. But if you haven't seen these guys, I mean, they look ridiculous, but at the same time look quite cool. I don't know why, but anyway. So they've got these. They've got like these guards that sort of. They look like they slightly wrap around. It looks like they kind of are going to push the water out and stop spraying all of this business. And I get what they're trying to do. But on the front tyres, in particular, with the wheel brows there, and then you've got the spray guard at the base of the tyre at the rear, I know it's open wheel racing, but I sort of think, are we not just at a point now where you may as well just close the wheels off? Because there's that much stuff around them with the wheel brows and then these new things they were trying to trial. You think, well, just I don't want the wheels closed off. I want Formula One to remain open wheel, don't get me wrong, but you sort of think you're kind of almost there anyway, so just do it. A little bit like the Halo when it was first announced. And you all know I was a massive fan of the Halo when it was first announced. That video does not exist anymore, by the way. But it kind of feels like they're trying to do something, but they've sort of not half-arsed it, because the Halo's been brilliant. It's literally saved lives. But it feels like they've kind of gone, we need to do this, but we can't close the cockpit because it's we like to have our cockpits open, so we'll put that round there. We can't have closed wheels because we are open wheel racing, so we'll just put these round the bottom. I don't want closed wheels. I don't want closed cockpit, but it just feels like an FIA trying to find a way around not taking that side of the sport away. But as far as I understand it, though, from what I've read, they didn't work anyway. I think the trial failed. Unless I'm thinking of another trial that was done that weekend, because they ran Mercedes, didn't they, with those on, and then a McLaren behind to see if it changed it, and I don't think it made any difference whatsoever. So, or it probably made a difference, but not enough for difference. So there's probably going to be new ideas anyway. But that was what they trialed, and that's why we saw no pictures until today. But really weird, which is fair enough. Let's see what you're saying about this new trial. Then I'll end the poll. There were probably, of the people in chat, I reckon, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people didn't like it or said it was terrible that I could see. So bear that in mind when we do this. So it probably wouldn't have swayed the poll too much. But 47% said that it was okay. 31% said it was great, and 21% said it didn't change anything, so fair enough. And the one and only says the trial didn't fail. They tried something with minimal impact on aero, but that also meant it didn't make a big difference on spray. They got a lot of data and CFD correlation out of it. Okay, fair enough. Fail's probably the wrong word then, but it's... Would it be better to say then that they expected it to have more of an impact? So I guess in that regard it was a fail, in that it didn't, they thought it would have more of an impact and it didn't. But yeah, fail's the wrong word, so thank you for clarifying that. The idea makes a lot of sense. More heat in the wets equals more raceable in wet conditions, and it's bad but not the worst thing ever, says Mickey. Oh, Mickey, it's beautiful Mickey. It's not bad, it's bad, but it's not the worst thing I've seen in Formula One. And what was that comment on the Halo? Random Bosman says, don't worry, most of us hated the Halo initially, a couple of life saves later, maybe it's not that bad. Lol, absolutely. So and Josh says less wet tires at tracks like Bahrain or Abu Dhabi. But yeah, that's my take on it. It's not it didn't really affect anything. I knew it was happening. The only reason really, I mean, when you see the colours of the tires, but the only reason I really kept being reminded it was happening was because commentary kept telling me. It's the way I'm going to sum that one up for you. Anyway, who else should we talk about? I'm going to take your questions throughout, but there's I can't get over how enjoyable that session was. I mean, qualifying always is. It's rarely a snooze fest, is it? It's qualifying. It's not bad at all. I think that's the other thing as well. And again, Martin Brundle made the point. Do we need to keep tampering with qualifying? It's it's often one of the best parts of the weekend, if not the best part of the weekend. So do we need to have this tyre thing? Do we need to have sprints messing about with it? And do you know what I mean? I just... I like quali as it is. There are lots of things that can be changed in Formula One. I'm sure many of you will have lots of long lists of the things you'd love to see brought into F1 or got rid of, but I don't think we need to be messing about with qualifying quite as much as we do. It works as it is and has done for years. Let's talk about that P5. We did talk about Zhou. I've got nothing really to say other than wow. Yeah. James says £100 super chat if Danny replaces Perez before the end of the season. Deal. I've got a better deal for you, Rich. £100 super chat anyway and send it to me now. I'm joking. Come on, James. Let's not do deals, mate. Just send me your money. No. No. I mean, you can do if you want to go with that. That's fine, but I don't think he will before the end of the season. He'd have to replace him. It couldn't be announced. But no, I don't think he will. I from what Red Bull are saying, Perez has that seat next year. So, but, key point here, as I will always say, when it comes to contracts and silly season, they're going to say that. They're not going to sit here and go, oh, we're going to replace him next year, even though he's got a contract, because that's going to cost them a ruddy fortune. So they're going to have to play it clever. But yeah, exactly, Del. We can't really trust what they're saying all the time, can we? So we'll see. I still... We will talk about Zhou, I promise, but I was just going to... It's... The trouble with Perez is that he's got Q3 today, and everyone's like, oh, he's finally made Q3, well done. And then you're like, yeah, but he was 9th. And I know fine margins, but... And he, you know, his teammate is Max Verstappen, but 4/10 off his teammate, P9. I'm not convinced that's something to get too excited about from Red Bull's side or from Sergio Perez's side. It's definitely improvement, but he needs to be. I mean, you could argue he needs to be on the front row when his teammate's on pole. He needs to be there every weekend, but he needs to be sort of top 3 or 4 at the very least in that car. He should be. Pretty much every weekend, and then he needs to be on the podium pretty much every weekend because, and I know Max Verstappen makes a huge difference in that car, but still, it's maybe not as dominant as it was earlier in the season, but it is still the fastest package out there, so he should be higher than 9th, but at the same time, as Aston Martin is saying, a couple of tenths and you look like a legend, and a couple of tenths off and you look worse, so so just on Zhou, what do you want me to say? I wasn't expecting it at all, not at all, from Alfa Romeo, either Alfa. So I'm really impressed with them. Really nice step forward they've made. Good to see them having a good weekend, actually, because they've been sort of nowhere, haven't they? Often when it comes to the race reaction, I've got no notes on them because we didn't see them and there's nothing really to say, and I have to wait for their quotes to come through. But it was nice to see them quick, and not just quick, competitive at the front. I mean, like I keep saying, Zhou was only 3.5 tenths off pole. He topped Q2. Bottas was super fast early in qualifying as well. So brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I'm so pleased. And I've been a big defender of Zhou Guanyu. I think he got a lot of stick for last year, and I don't think it was justified. I think he did a very good job. And he's doing a very good job again this year in a very difficult car. So I think he deserves the credit. And this is just fantastic to see, and amazing to see 7 teams in the top 10. That's so good. That is so good. That's what we want in Formula One. It is probably a one-off when we go to Spa and you've got those long straights with the Red Bull and everything else. It's probably going to spread out again. But how lovely to be able to sit here and be like 7 teams in the top 10. That's great. It doesn't often happen in F1, or it doesn't feel like it does. It maybe does. If I go back and do the stats, it probably happens more often than I think it does. But well done to Zhou Guanyu. Is probably all I'd say on that one. But I'd like to after the stream or probably tomorrow morning now, because I'll go watch the IndyCar in a bit and have some food. I might go and have a look for some onboards of Zhou and just see what his laps were like, because I think he had times deleted as well, didn't he? So I think there were a few moments he was under pressure. So that adds a little bit more impressiveness to that one. And Random adding to his point says he was solid last year, Zhou. Alfa Romeo strategy doesn't get enough criticism last season. I get that. But the other thing is, as well, like I say, last season as well, didn't see a lot of them, so it was difficult to sort of say the strategy was bad when I'm waiting for press releases to come through because we don't see much of them. In like a race reaction an hour after the race, it's difficult to have that information. And in a press release, they're not going to go, yeah, strategy was awful today. They're going to be like, oh, we could have done better, but I will have a look for the press release actually and see what the look at that. As literally just fell in my inbox as I opened my phone. Very, very good. Thank you, everyone. See what they're saying and see if there's a reason behind it. That was what I was going to say. Joe was his engineer said to him over the radio after Q2. I think it was Q2. You're safe. And he said, he looked at the time and was like, I'm P1. I think I'm a bit more than safe. It's like, that's just a little bit of insight there into an engineer's mind. Like, the priority for Alpha is being safe and into the next stage of qualifying. They don't care what position it is necessarily. So it's like, his reaction is, we're safe, rather than, holy crap, mate, that's P1. Well done. I'm trying to see if there's anything here that we don't know. Big step. I had to do a big step in my final push lap since my previous one had gotten deleted. That's what I'm saying. So yeah, so a lot of pressure on that one. So it double well done, I guess. Overall, I would say this track layout suits our car well, which gives us great motivation ahead of tomorrow's race. The team did an amazing job, and I'm glad we got both cars into the top 10. We were not happy with the performance we extracted from the new package after Silverstone, but we all worked hard in order to further optimise it, and these results prove it. And Valtteri de Bottas says, I don't know what that was, but there you go. Strong throughout the whole qualifying session with all the new compounds, managed to extract the full potential from the car. Track layout suits the car. Yep, basically what Joe was saying, and I assume Alessandro Alunni Bravi is saying pretty much the same. Fully aware that this is only qualifying, although on a track like this one, starting positions are important. Looking at Sunday, this is just half the job. Obviously, great opportunity to score some points. Fine-tuning the upgrades we introduced in Silverstone, we were able to unlock the extra performance of our cars needed. Yeah, so there you go. Wicked. I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them. I said wicked on stream. I thought I'd never do that, but there you go. And points. I mean, points could be big. I mean, Haas have got Hulkenberg up there, but we know they tend to go backwards on a Sunday. They're on 9 points, aren't they? Alfa Romeo, yeah. So, a couple of points tomorrow. 3 points. I mean, where are they? They're on. If it ends now, it's 10 points for Joe alone. So that could be a big look. They could be threatening P7 by the end of this weekend in the standings, and that's huge. Huge for them. Although I'm sure many of you will argue that for a team like Alpha, maybe they prefer the CFD time rather than the money. But the money will be nice. They've got Audi behind them now, ready for 26. So maybe they're not that bothered. But yeah, Spaces, I'm dubious of all of my comments that begin with "I'm a Checo fan," but of all comments that begin with "I'm a Checo fan," but. Oh, about dubious. Dubious seems harsh, but no, I take your point. It's this is it. Like, I love Checo, so I've tried to avoid saying I'm a Checo fan, but I love Checo and I defend him a lot. But you can't look at that and be like, oh, Checo's back, but at least he made Q3, which is a step in the right direction. But he needs to be doing more than Q3. He needs to be not challenging for pole necessarily, but he needs to be up there. Max Verstappen on a perfect day for him is probably going to take pole in this car every weekend. So Checo needs to be up there right with him. I know it wasn't space. I'm just trying to think about. It just made me think of all the times that I go, I love Checo, but I was like, oh no, here we go again. Let's see what you guys said in chat, and then we'll see. Tell me what you want me to talk about, and I'll give you a view on their session, and then we'll do it that way rather than running through the whole field, because again, I don't want to do that in these. These are supposed to be nice and relaxed. Oh, that's what I wanted to poll you on as well before we put the next one in. I will do another poll towards the end for something, but I just want to know, and let me know in the comments afterwards if you're watching this as a VOD later. I love the thing VOD. I don't know why. Just want to know, F1 Manager streams, when it launches, yay or nay? Just let me know. They'll be very much like this, but with a game in the background. So instead of looking at the stats and the pictures, you'll just be listening to me talk nonsense whilst playing a game instead. So it'll be exactly the same. It's this, but with a game in the background. I'll just see whether you turn up for those, whether you are interested. Checo is no Bottas, says Clansom. Mm. No. I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say it. We need more amazing Sean strategies. Says, oh, they're terrible, Daniel Philpott. I'm not good on strategy, full stop. But there you go. But I'll criticize everybody else for them. Gasly, Ocon, and how is Alpine? Yes, F1 Manager Stream. So the Alpine, yeah, there was a comment made by somebody. I think it was Ed Spencer, a journalist, saying a cup load of pressure. If you can you carry pressure in a cup? I suppose you can. A cup load of pressure has just been poured onto Otmar Safnauer's seat, which made me think, is he under pressure, Otmar Safnauer? And then I looked at them in qualifying and I thought, yeah, maybe he is. I know it's only one qualifying session, but they've kind of been a bit all over the place, Alpine. They had a really nice run between Miami and Canada. And I suppose, where's Gasly? You could throw in points as well for Austria, but really good run. And I thought that was the point, that they were fourth best team. And I think that's what they're targeting for. But I suppose it's sort of both, but I don't think they've taken a step back as such. But I certainly feel that they've not been developing as aggressively as some of those that they've been battling. So are they already looking at next year? Mercedes have already said they're predominantly looking at 2024, which isn't a great surprise, really. Are Alpine focusing on next year? Is that going to be Otmar's big opportunity to make a leap forward? I don't know. But 12th for Ocon today and 15th for Gasly wasn't particularly amazing. I thought they'd be better than that. And they were showing good pace. They were purple sectors at times. So I don't know if it was just they couldn't hold the tyres for the whole lap, which could well be that, actually, to be fair. Couldn't get the performance out of the whole lap. I did make some notes on what Gasly had to say, but as is always the case, I can't read my own handwriting because I'm an idiot. So 3 sets of softs and 3 sets of hards, were used by Gasly and Ocon in Q1. So they've got no new hards tomorrow. And Gasly had a lot of understeer problems in the car. That was it. So Gasly was struggling with understeer, so that's why he is down in 15th place. And Ocon in 12th it's not good enough. It's not for that team. I expected more this weekend. And there were times looking at looking through practice and then looking at, like I said, the sector times, you think, oh, they're in there. They're not far off. And that's kind of the story of the day in some ways, because the field is close. It's not close enough for something, but it is closer this weekend. So a few tenths of something that look like geniuses. But I'm just looking at the times now. I mean, Ocon was half a second off Sainz in P11, so maybe not. But I've just realised, actually, before we do anything else on Alpine, which is a conversation. I'm sorry, I'm looking at 2 things at once, but the conversation people want me to have. But Daniel Ricciardo, we've not talked about Daniel Ricciardo. I said I would right at the start. I said we'd talk about Daniel Ricciardo at some point, and it's taken me an hour to get to this point. So apologies. I just spotted him underneath Esteban Ocon, which is an image you didn't need. But that's so bad. P13 for Danny Rick today. P17 for Yuki Tsunoda. Daniel Ricciardo, on his return to Formula One, has out-qualified Yuki Tsunoda. Now, a lot of people, they said it in the Sky Show, I've seen it on social media, oh, Daniel Ricciardo's nearly a second quicker than Tsunoda. He's not. Daniel Ricciardo was, where is he? 100th. Is that 13 thousandths of a second quicker than Yuki Tsunoda? People are looking at his Q2 time of a 1:18.0 on the medium, and then looking at Tsunoda's hard time in Q1 at an 18.9 and going, oh, there's nearly a second between them. There's not. You need to look at Q1 for that one. Ricciardo, 13 thousandths quicker than Yuki Tsunoda. It's nothing, absolutely nothing, but in terms of time, but that will mean everything to Ricciardo to hop in that car and get himself 1-0 up in qualifying versus his teammate with everything on the line there. We're not just talking about Red Bull. His career, he wants to get back in a competitive car towards the sharp end of the grid. He wants to turn things around after McLaren. That's the perfect start. Obviously, we'll see where we are at the end of the season. He's got to do that consistently, but what a way to hop in that car. 3 sessions, one of those was wet as well. So 3 sessions, a new quali format, and he's out-qualified his teammate. I think that's very, very good from Daniel Ricciardo. And I predicted him for a P12 finish tomorrow, and I think he can do that from P13. I'm not sure about points. It would be nice. It feels like if you're P13, you should be in the mix for points, especially if things happen ahead. But that AlphaTauri, not always great on a Sunday, is it? So I'd be surprised. He might need something to happen ahead. I mean, the first thing that's going to happen is Nico Hulkenberg will drop, bless him, like a stone, as the Haas does on a Sunday. So that's 12th. So I'm right on prediction straight away. But he's going to need stuff to happen ahead of him, I think, for points tomorrow. But then, a safety car, a well-timed strategy, an incident somewhere, and it changes, doesn't it? So he's going to be, he's got a chance, but I'm not convinced that he'll pick up points tomorrow at all. So remember, De Vries had a more than solid showing for Williams as well. Look how his F1 career worked out, says Red Raven. Oh, sorry, but it's part of a bigger conversation. Sorry. Solid show, but I will only be convinced if he beats Tsunoda in races and has the upper hand at the end of the season. Yeah, that's my read as well, Red Raven. We need to see Race in a few races. He needs to do it consistently, doesn't he? And he needs to do it in the Grand Prix. But I still think that's an impressive start for two practice sessions, really, and then a new qualifying format to do that. I think he deserves the credit for that. I'm not saying you're not giving him that credit, of course, but I think he deserves that. It needs to be consistent. Though. It's no good. He can't go to Helmut Marko at the end of the year and say, "Hey, look, I've been out qualified by Tsunoda every qualifying since, and I've not finished ahead of him since the Sunday in Hungary." If he was to do that, but I did out qualify him on Saturday. He can't do that because Marko's going to tell him to do one. He's got to do it consistently, and he's not going to get. And I don't think he should. He's not going to get the time that Tsunoda would get, or a proper rookie would get. He's not a rookie, Daniel Ricciardo. He is a very experienced driver. And Martin Brundle, again, was saying on Sky coverage, he fully expected Ricciardo to get in that car and out-qualify Tsunoda. I didn't, actually. I didn't think he would. I thought Tsunoda's been very good this year, very underrated by some people, and I thought that Tsunoda would have it today, and he didn't for one reason or another. So I think well done to Danny Rick. But he's not going to get... I was going to say he's not going to get the time De Vries got, but... I mean, what time? I have my view on De Vries. I did it in the video. At the end of the day, F1's ruthless. It always will be. You could argue... In fact, no point arguing it's true. Red Bull more so. But perform. And you keep your seat, don't you? That's it at the end of the day. That's not specific to De Vries. It's just a wider Formula One thing. You're given an opportunity to race in Formula One, deliver, and you'll keep your seat. It was the point I made about Perez on Wednesday with Lawrence Edmondson from ESPN when he was on. I was saying then, people talking about Perez's future, the best way to make that speculation go away is to perform. And it's harsh on De Vries in some ways because it was only 10 races, but although it was officially his rookie season, he's not new to racing, is he? He's not like a Tsunoda coming in straight from F3 to F2 into F1, and he needs that time. I still think there's a very good chance Liam Lawson will be in one of those cars next year. I have a weird, not in a weird creepy way, but a weird obsession with Liam Lawson at the minute. I'm watching him in Super Formula very closely, and he's seriously good in Super Formula. And what I like about him is he's kind of really... I think the Super Formula commentator made the point, actually, that he's kind of almost Finnish in his demeanour. He's not... He's got emotion, he shows emotion, but he's very... Not cold, because cold sounds really harsh, but you know what I'm getting at. He's not showing as much emotion as others do, and I kind of like just how steely, I suppose you could say that is. I like Liam Lawson a lot, is the point I'm making. Want to see what Tsunoda was saying, see if there's anything happened in Q1. Difficult being knocked out in Q1. Tough and disappointed, which is fair enough. Couldn't improve and missed out on Q2, not finishing in the position I wanted to, and it's a shame. Pace was there, and I feel we have made a step forward with the new rear wing. Just couldn't put it together and maximise my performance. Good learning for the future. And Danny Rick says, main thing for me is to get behind the wheel, feel good again, and be comfortable in the car and the team. I feel like I've made good progress over the past 2 days and learnt relatively quickly. And as long as we keep progressing from here, I'll be happy. Hasn't been the easiest weekend to come in with the wet conditions yesterday and the different tyre allocations. Fair enough. But I was happy to be competitive in qualifying. So that's what they're saying there. I don't think there's anything else to add on that one. But yeah, so really good from Ricciardo, but we need it not every weekend, but consistently. He needs to be doing that. But I don't want him to do it consistently. I don't want him to like beat Tsunoda every weekend, because I don't want that then people dragging Tsunoda down, because I like Tsunoda a lot. I think he deserves a lot of credit for this season. But that lineup is now fascinating for me, because you've got so different dynamics, two completely different dynamics, but actually, I can't even word it, but I know what I'm trying to say, but it just fascinates me, because you've got Daniel Ricciardo, who wants to prove that he's good enough to be in a Red Bull. You've got Yuki Tsunoda, who wants to prove he's good enough to be in a Red Bull. But you've got two completely different drivers of different experience. And it's so fascinating. And I can't wait to see how it all plays out over the course of this season. And it's going to be a really interesting winter, because I can't see AlphaTauri, mate, unless Daniel Ricciardo absolutely smashes it between now and the end of the season, and Yuki Tsunoda's right behind him, or they're sharing, trading blows. 1 week Ricciardo's faster, the next Tsunoda's quicker, and it's really driving AlphaTauri forward. I don't see a decision before the end of the season. So we could have a really interesting winter as well. Stoic's a good word, AJ. Stoic's a very good word. I like that. Could be a good one. Steely in the way of Kimi Räikkönen. Not quite to that extent, Red Raven. He's not quite Kimi levels. But he seems very chill. And very quick. Really quick. Really quick. Did we talk about Lewis P1? Yes, we did. We absolutely did. Right at the start. We went through that one. Any questions? Throw questions at me there. Names, teams that you want to talk about. Anything to do with Formula One. Let's do that for the next 20-25 minutes or so. And then we will round off for today. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. I know these are very waffly, and some people love these, some people don't. But if you don't, then thank you for coming anyway, and catch you in the race reaction tomorrow. But if you do, then awesome. Please do leave a like as well. Really would appreciate that. And don't forget to subscribe if you are new. Reaction tomorrow, preview for Belgium on Thursday, and then Waffle again next Saturday, and reaction on Sunday. I think it won't be Waffle on Saturday. It'll be Waffle on Friday evening, because qualifying's on Friday, isn't it? Because it's a sprint weekend. Unless you want me to do Saturday as well, which seems a bit excessive. That's a lot of Sean. That is a lot of Sean. I'll end that poll. Thank you very much for the feedback on that one. That's a lot of Sean. 3 straight Waffle streams is a bit much, I think. Thank you, Henry, for your super chat and for your support. Really appreciate that one, mate. It says, what do you think is next for Ricciardo if Perez returns to his early season form? Will he stay at AlphaTauri or whatever they're called in 2024? Thank you very much, mate. I appreciate that. It's a good question, actually. Of course, they're all good questions, but that's a very good question. I think, as I was kind of touching on that, if him and Yuki are quite evenly matched, and Danny Rick's delivering and Tsunoda's delivering, and they're behind the scenes driving the team forward, I don't see why AlphaTauri wouldn't want to keep him on. It's whether he'd want to stay on for another season. I think it could be interesting next year as well as to what that AlphaTauri, or whatever, as you say, whatever it was called, is going to look like, because there's a lot of, they want to move towards the Red Bull design philosophy, so it's probably going to look a little bit like this year's Red Bull. Wink, wink. It's probably going to look a bit like this year's Red Bull next year for AlphaTauri, and that might be something that makes Daniel Ricciardo want to stick around, because that might make them more competitive. And I think if he's challenging in the midfield a bit more, he might fancy it. But he's 30. Oh, where are you, Daniel Ricciardo? You're not on the Wikipedia page yet. Yes, you are. Well, he's 34. Just turned 34. 35 next year, therefore. There's some good math for you. 1 + 1. So 34. I was going to say, can he afford to spend time in the midfield, or does he really need to try and get somewhere towards the front? Does he need to be keeping his options open with some of the teams up there? For example, it's just a thought. Okay, I'm not saying this is going to happen. I have no information. I'm not trying to make out this is a real thing that will happen. But as an example, if he really delivers in AlphaTauri this season, and let's say Lance Stroll struggles at Aston Martin and Lawrence Stroll goes, do you know what? You're my son. I love you, but you're not performing. I need somebody in here who can help us in the constructors. Your performances cost us P2, for example, last year. And Daniel Ricciardo goes, hey up. Could there be a seat there? Alonso and Ricciardo. I'm not saying that will happen, and I do not think Lance Stroll will be dropped anytime soon. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that's the kind of seat he needs to be looking at, doesn't he? Because I don't see him in that Red Bull next year, unless Perez has a shocker over the rest of this season. And just actually a point, because it does bother me, and don't worry, we're not going to get as ranty as we did last week or last race. We're not going to get quite to that level, but it's I think recency bias in F1 really is quite frustrating. We don't ever reveal what frustrates you on the internet, because that'll be held against me now at every opportunity. But a lot of people will say things like, oh, Perez is finished. It's like he's on a dip of form. That doesn't mean a driver's finished. Lots of drivers have had dips in form. And I think Checo's had dips in form. And you come back stronger from those. It's how you bounce back, and 5 races out of Q3 is terrible in that car. He should not, I don't care what the excuses are, he shouldn't be doing that in that car. He's in Q3 today. It's an improvement. It's still not good enough. He needs to be higher than 9th place, but it's a step in the right direction. If he bounces back from this, which I believe he can, then, as was said in that super chat, if he finds his early season form and he's on the podium every weekend, all of this goes away. I just don't like the whole a few bad races and they're finished. And he's not even had bad races, to be fair. It's bad qualifying. Monaco was pretty horrendous. But Spain, he recovered to 4th. Not the easiest track to overtake on. Canada, he recovered to 6th. Austria, he recovered to 3rd. Silverstone, not the easiest track to overtake on. He recovered to 6th. He is still P2 in the championship, which is the minimum he needs to be doing, according to Helmut Marko and co. So, as long as he doesn't drop out of P2 and he can find some form and be consistently on the podium and keep picking up the points on a Sunday, he's not finished. And it's funny because a lot of people, I used to be quite critical of Valtteri Bottas up against Lewis Hamilton, and people used to really get quite cross at me about it because, hey, he's up against Lewis Hamilton. You can't be comparing the two, which is fair enough. And Valtteri's helping to win the constructors, which again is fair enough. However, that doesn't seem to be the same. That excuse doesn't seem to be given to Perez. I don't know if it's that people love the drama, or won't give credit where it's due for certain drivers, or think he's overrated or whatever, or whether it is that people are using their brain cells and thinking, well, actually, this is Red Bull we're talking about. He's not going to get the luxury of time that others would get. So I just don't like the whole. It was the same with, Ricciardo's finished he had a crap couple of years at McLaren. He won a race, but he struggled at McLaren. Nobody can deny that. Doesn't mean the talent's not there. Doesn't mean if everything clicks and comes back round, he can't be a fantastic driver. Doesn't mean Perez won't between now and the end of the season. I hate the whole writing a driver off after a few races when they've shown consistently that they are a very good driver. Perez has shown throughout his career that he's a very good Formula One driver. And he's had dips in form and bounced back from him. He's done fantastic to do that. So when you've got that kind of thing backing you up, when you have another dipping form, it would be nice if people, specifically the media, could maybe go, these things happen, let's see how he bounces back, rather than just he's going to get sacked. And it's just like, Christ. I know the media have got to get clicks. I know that. And they've got to sell papers. Are they still a thing, newspapers? I assume they are. I've not bought one for probably a decade or more. I assume they're still a thing, but you know what I mean. You've got to get the clicks. They've got to jump on these things. But it's just his Sundays aren't bad. It's just they look worse because his qualifying's bad. It's what I said in the preview. If he can go from a track like Silverstone from 15th on the grid to 6th, if he starts in the top 3 or 4 places, he's going to be on the podium every weekend, in theory. It's frustrating because I think there are drivers on the grid who, it's right to criticise him for his qualifying. I'm not saying you shouldn't criticise him. You absolutely should, because it wasn't good enough. But there are drivers who get criticised on this grid who have got a lot of things backing them up throughout their career. Some fantastic drives, great performances, great runs of form, fantastic drives in cars that shouldn't be fantastic. all right circumstances, but he won in a racing point. You know, Lance Stroll stuck it on pole in a racing point. I mean, it was a good car that year. I get that, but Gasly won in AlphaTauri, Ocon won in Alpine, and people, you know, there are a lot of drivers that have got things to back them up in performances, and they have a bad couple of weekends or a bad few weekends or a bad few qualifiers, and everyone's like, oh, they're crap, they're terrible, they're the worst driver ever, they're finished. And it's like, that's not true at all. It's just not. It's a pet peeve. It's on my list of pet peeves. I can't help it. But then also, I'm not the kind of person that will just sit here and declare a driver finished because they've had bad qualifying runs. I think if he'd been terrible all season to this point, he wouldn't be in that car, for one. And I'd be on board with the whole maybe it's time to move him on and find somebody else. But actually, do you know what? I think it was Space that made the point. Correct me if I'm wrong, mate. I think it was Space that made the point in Silverstone that although, you didn't say it this way, but although 6th place is bad, and I said at the time as well, 15th on the grid at Silverstone to 6th is actually a good result because it's tough to overtake at that track. But also, technically speaking, or officially speaking, he did the job he was supposed to, which has extended his lead over Fernando Alonso in P3. It's a bit of a slow clap kind of thing, but he, you know, if he's supposed to be finishing second in that car and that's what will keep him in it, then he did actually extend his lead over Fernando Alonso. So is that what we need to be looking at with Checo? Because it's like I said, the Hamilton Bottas thing, comparing Schumacher and Irvine or Barrichello, you know, Hamilton and Bottas. I was going to say Vettel and Webber, that would have been harsh, but you get my point. You know, comparing Perez and Verstappen isn't fair because Verstappen is a generational talent. He's about to become a triple world champion. Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champion. You can't compare Bottas to him because he's a generational talent. Bottas is a very good driver, like Perez is a very good driver, but they're not on the same level as their teammates or former teammates. So it's not... Perez, I think, needs to be closer than 4/10 to Verstappen, but I don't expect him to be within 4 1,000ths every weekend. Anyway, that doesn't matter. It's just me. It's me airing another pet peeve. It's the Leclerc thing all over again in Canada. So please don't misinterpret that as me saying, "Oh, Checo's wonderful, he can do no wrong," because I'm not doing that. I'm just making the point that I think certain drivers have earned through performances in the past a bit more time to bounce back from a rough ride. Some will say De Vries should have, but I don't, you know, he hasn't got the Formula One performances behind him to back him up like Perez has, if you get what I'm saying. If I'm not explaining it properly, I apologise, but you know me, I like to just run with my head, my mind, run my mouth. Bottas was consistently on the podium, no. Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. Yeah, that exactly. That's what Perez needs to be doing. That's the point I'm making. You can't compare Hamilton and Bottas because they're completely different talents. You can't compare Verstappen and Perez, but Perez needs to be closer to Verstappen. If that makes it. I think we're on the same page, James L. We're on the same page. I'm just not wording it the right way. But has the Alfa Romeo and Ferrari got even harder to tell apart at first glance this season? The Alfa Romeo livery doesn't stand out like I hoped it would after launch. It sort of blends in quite nastily. There are many ways to look at a not full glass of water, says Space. Yeah, tip it down the sink and get a beer is the way I look at that one. I'm completely over the Sky F1 commentators' character assassinating Red Bull as its drivers and drooling over UK drivers excessively, says Cat V. I'm not going to go out on Sky. I've said plenty of times what I think about Sky's coverage, and I guess the summary of it is they're a British channel, so they have every right to be biased, like Dutch media have every right to be biased and Spanish media do. However, Sky's broadcast goes worldwide to a lot of territories, and maybe they do need to just bear that in mind. But at the same time, Lando Norris is British, and he's a fun, nice guy, and he sells, doesn't he? So I think if Lando Norris was French or German or whatever, I think they still talk to him just as much because he's just a nice guy. But I get your point, but I'm not going on Sky. I also don't want to voice an opinion on them this weekend because probably upset people, but there you go. Do you think Spa will change in the future for safety, says MD Games? Yeah, let's move on to another topic. Good idea, MD Games. In the future, possibly, imminently, no. There'll be no changes for next weekend. There were people talking on, I think it was Threads actually, about, it doesn't matter whether they're talking. There were people talking about the other day about maybe, talking about the chicane in 94 that used to be down at the bottom of Eau Rouge, and could that be something they look at? But it's not going to change for next weekend. There's no way they can put something in and get that homologated and everything in time for Formula One. They're all set up and ready to go. They've made changes to try and improve safety at that sequence of corners, and it's always going to be a dangerous sequence of corners. So, I mean, it's... Yeah. So to answer the question, no, I guess not anytime soon, but maybe they'll look at it in the future. Unless Spa goes the way of some other tracks that, F1 outgrows it a bit, maybe. I don't know. I hope not, because I really do like Spa. I'm not going to get all upset and emotional about a bit of tarmac if it disappears. It doesn't bother me that much, or asphalt, sorry. It doesn't really bother me. It's a great sequence of corners, great to watch the cars there, but if they put something else there, then whatever, it is what it is. As long as they don't replace it with a street track. If they do get rid of Spa, then that's for like a Brussels city street track or something like that. I don't know. Wish Spa would get its old bus stop chicane back, says Nick. Nick, I owe you a beer. I completely agree. I loved the old bus stop chicane, and then the shot of the cars coming towards it as well, where they sort of come right before the left turn. There's some great memories. Why change it? Why change it? It's yeah. We're entering jaunty levels of tinfoil. That being said, remember that it will be Aston Martin, Honda in the future. Is Tsunoda's true opponent Stroll or Alonso or Ricciardo, and not for the Red Bull? I nearly said something when Lawrence was on. I meant to ask him it, and I wish I had, about Tsunoda to Aston Martin, because it does make sense until I sort of work out what that means. So Honda are coming in 2026 with Aston Martin. Is Fernando going to be here for that? Really? A lot of people will go, yeah, he could be, but do we really think that Alonso's still going to be here in 2026? At which point the question is, are we really looking at a lineup of Tsunoda and Stroll? I mean, look, we're looking into the future here. We're looking several years into the future. Tsunoda might become an absolute world beater. We'll not know. But based on today, I would not fancy a lineup at Aston Martin of Yuki Tsunoda and Lance Stroll. Somebody and Yuki Tsunoda, maybe somebody like, maybe Verstappen when his contract's up at Red Bull. I don't know. Like that kind of thing. Like a big star like an Alonso, like a Verstappen, like a Hamilton and a Tsunoda, rather than Tsunoda and Stroll. But you've got a point. It's a very good point. Again, I meant to ask it to Lawrence, and I might do next time. He's like, in fact, you know what? Let's screenshot that question, and I will try and remember to ask that to Lawrence or Nate or whoever's on with me next, and we do one of those streams, because it might be interesting what the paddock's saying on that one, because it's a fair point. The Japanese connection, it makes total sense. So yeah, F1 TV is pretty good. No Danica Patrick, says Robert. Fair enough. It's yeah. If you don't like Danica Patrick, Nico Rosberg, and kids, you're going to have a horrible weekend on Sky this weekend. That's all I'm going to say on that one. Honda made a statement that they would be more than fine with Alonso. Not sure how Alonso would feel, says John Marshall. Yeah, they'd be happy with him. I think Alonso will be fine so long as that Honda is as good as it is in the back of that Red Bull, which is, a Red Bull powertrain, but yeah, whatever. It's a Honda. I think he'd be very happy with that, and it was a long time ago as well, the GP2 engine stuff, and Honda were not performing, were they, at all? So that criticism was justified. But I'm just not sure Alonso would still be an F1 But then I thought about Kimi Räikkönen. I think he could have raced it with 100 if he wanted to. So rain chances tomorrow. Yeah, let's look ahead to tomorrow a little bit. We'll do some predictions in a minute as well. Rain chances for tomorrow. Let's have a look at the Hungaroring weather, which should be on my recent searches. Slim to none. Races at 2 UK, so local time 3 o'clock. So 14% chance of rain. That's Monday, Sean, you donut. Races are held on a Sunday. 0% chance of rain, so no rain tomorrow. 31 degrees for Oh, no, a little bit cooler, actually. 29, 30 degrees for lights out, but could reach as high as 31. So no rain tomorrow. But all you need to know is that on Monday, there's a 14% chance of rain at 3 o'clock. So there you go, MD Games. If you're off to Hungary tomorrow, take an umbrella just in case it rains on Monday. Alonso could take over from Stroll Senior as team manager. That's a not a bad idea, Cat. Cat, what have you done? No. Vettel in some capacity at Red Bull and Alonso in some capacity on the management side in Aston Martin. Oh, God, it'd be like seeing your Lampards and your Gerrards and your Solskjaers managing. I'd feel ancient. Anyway. Goodness me. Yeah. You think an Alonso win is still on the cards this year? Asks Yinka. That's a great question. I'm less confident today than I was yesterday, when I was Thursday when I did the preview, or Wednesday night it was actually, but Thursday for you guys. I predicted him for a win at some point this year several times. I'm not sure. Singapore could be an opportunity if street tracks are somewhere they're going to be strong. But the rest of the calendar, it's a bit tricky to tell, really. You've got Belgium next week, possibly not going to be great there. Zandvoort, Monza, Japan, Qatar. Not confident, but I'll say yes, he can. He might need something to happen somewhere like a Singapore or maybe Sao Paulo. Brazil tends to throw out some surprises, doesn't it? I'm not confident, but yeah, I'm hoping so. This is the only chance for a non-Red Bull win, in my opinion, says Random. You might be right. But even then, I still think Verstappen goes in tomorrow as favourite, doesn't he? Does anyone miss Di Resta? I don't miss Di Resta, no, not at all. Can Stroll get in the points tomorrow? 14th place. I think he should. Tricky to overtake, isn't it? We're going to be DRS train from probably Zhou down for much of tomorrow, so it's going to be tough for anybody in that 5th, 6th place down to probably as far as Alex Albon down there in 16th place to get much done tomorrow. The start's going to be critical. Safety cars are rare as well at Hungary, so it's. Yeah, it surprised me that I did that. I think it was Clanson that asked me why I was surprised by it, because safety car wasn't officially introduced until 1993 in F1, but it just surprised me that we've been going to Hungary every year since it was introduced in 1993, and the first safety car wasn't until 2006. I've only had 6 races with a safety car, so it's not like I'm not expecting that tomorrow at all, but, you know, safety cars in F2, so an F3, so maybe it'll happen, but at some point this season, Verstappen will be the bowling point or the pin, says Red Raven, or bowling ball, sorry, and the pin. The other thing as well, engine penalties. Red Bull's reliability, knock on wood for Red Bull fans, it has been pretty strong this season, let's be fair. But there's going to come a point where they're going to have to take an engine penalty, possibly next weekend in Spa, or maybe Spa and Monza seem to be the favoured places, don't they, at this stage of the season? So maybe we will see some engine penalties in the next few races. And that, although you'd still back him to come from sort of 15th on the grid to be on the podium, maybe even win the race, there's going to come a point where he's going to have to take penalties, or there's going to be a problem, and it's going to cost him. So I'm not. I think they can win every race between now and the end of the season. I'm just not sure they will. Because there's just too many variables, especially when you've got that long run of flyaways, a triple header in there somewhere as well. You've got tracks like, you know, Brazil. Who bloody knows what's going to happen in Brazil? We've never been to Vegas. Qatar we've been to once. Japan with its weather can be all over the place. Singapore's a street circuit. Lots can happen in this back end of the season. So I think I said this point. I think I made this point to you all a while ago. I kind of would like Red Bull to win every race this season, just because from a historical, statistical point of view, that would be amazing. But the guy who wants to see great racing and great action doesn't want them to, because I want to see some drivers. I'd love to see, Lando Norris get his first win. It'd be great to see Ferrari top step of the podium again. I'd love to see Fernando Alonso get a win. So I don't want them to in that regard, but I think from a historical and statistical point of view, it would be bloody amazing. And then I think this season, to a lot of people, will always be quite dull, in air quotes. It won't be to me. But I think looking back in a few years, it'll be seen in the same light as a 2004, where it was dominant and maybe wasn't great for a neutral in some ways, but it'll be appreciated as absolutely incredible. Odds on McLaren double podium, says Ian. I'm not sure, but I'll tell you what, Ian, you've triggered something else in me here. Let's do predictions. Let me know your top three. Three, ham verbot kind of thing. Let me know, and I'll read some of those out. And then I'll give you mine for tomorrow, and then we'll wrap up for today. Just run you through the grid while you're doing that one, though. So confirmed grid for tomorrow is pretty much what we've already seen. So Hamilton on pole, Verstappen P2, Norris P3, Piastri P4, Zhou will be 5th. It is 6th for Leclerc, 7th Bottas, 8th Alonso, 9th Perez, 10th is Hülkenberg, Sainz in P11, Ocon 12th, Ricciardo 13th, Stroll 14th, Gasly in P15, 16th for Alex Albon, 17th for Yuki Tsunoda, 18th place for George Russell, 19th for Kevin Magnussen, and last but by no means least, Logan Sargent in P20. And just a reminder again, as I said earlier, bear this in mind in tomorrow's race. Lando Norris, the only driver with a new set of medium tyres. So and I think they said in commentary, this could be a 3-stop race tomorrow. It'll probably be a 2-stopper at least. But if there's a 3-stop race tomorrow, and Lando Norris has got a nice fresh set of mediums, he could be a threat late on in the race. So just something worth bearing in mind. So for tomorrow, I am going to go with... do I want to go bold or do I want to go really obviously boring? It's Sargent, Magnussen, and Russell will be the top three. No, I've got to do it as realistically as I can because it's just how I operate. I'm not a big fan of going too bold with these things, but I would do. All right, Dell, we'll do both. There you go. Dell's here to just be like, go on, Sean, just do both, mate. Jesus. So realistic. I still think Verstappen's favourite, so I think Verstappen win. I'm going to go... I think the top three will be the same, but in a different order is what I'm saying. So I think Verstappen, based on Silverstone, it's going to be close. I'll say Norris P2 and Hamilton P3, but that could really go either way. Because it was nice and close at Silverstone for a little while after the restarts, and that wasn't so. Yeah, that's Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton is my. I mean, that's sort of semi-bold, but that's my realistic pick. Could be Hamilton P2 though. I'm tempted to put him there, but we'll say Norris. Why not? And then bold pick for tomorrow. Top three abreast into turn one. Somebody, not naming any names, could be Hamilton, could be Verstappen, could be Norris. Moves too close, like Singapore. With Vettel, Raikkonen and Verstappen, someone gets squeezed. We end up with 3 cars out in turn one. Piastri takes the win. Charles Leclerc finishes second, and screw it, Zhou Guanyu third. There you go. That's your crazy bold prediction, but I think realistically Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton for me. So Del says Norris, Leclerc, Piastri. Del's gone bold. I want to see that race. Dex says Perez, Ricciardo and Sargent. That's incredibly bold. Phoenix. You know who you are. Says Verstappen, Hamilton, Perez. Still confident Perez will be on the podium. My official predictions, by the way, which is what I get scored for, are Verstappen win, Perez second, Alonso third. But I do not think that's going to happen. Just so you know. Amazing Ricciardo says Verstappen, Norris, Hamilton. So we've gone the same. Interesting. Somebody's agreeing with me. You probably want to change that quickly. James Rich says Verstappen, Hamilton, Norris. John says Hamilton, Norris, Verstappen. I don't know why I use your full name, James Rich, but I just call you James Rich. So there you go. Nick says Hamilton, Verstappen, and Norris. Not Enrique says Verstappen, Hamilton, and Piastri. Ian's gone with Hamilton, Norris, and Piastri. Red Raven says it's either going to be Verstappen, Hamilton, Norris, or a very entertaining race. Cat V says Verstappen, Norris, and Zhou. Magic Jack says couldn't watch quali live as I was watching Oppenheimer, but so happy that McLaren has good pace on a track they're weak at. Very true. But Magic Jack, if you're still here, most important question: how was Oppenheimer? I won't be going to cinema to watch either, but I'll be watching both the Barbie movie and Oppenheimer when they are released for streaming or whatever. Definitely. But Oppenheimer, it's my kind of film, I think. So interested to know your thoughts. Welcome to the Sean Review channel. Read that one. Do you prefer Alex Jakes or David Croft? Alex Jakes. Richie says Verstappen, Norris, Piastri tomorrow. Space says Verstappen, Norris, Perez. Mickey says Verstappen, Hamilton, Norris seems to make the most sense. Does F1 always make sense though, Mickey? AJ says Piastri, Perez, Leclerc. Liam says Verstappen, Hamilton, and then Norris for P3. Hamilton, Piastri, Zhou for, is it Neuma? No one that you know says Tsunoda, Gasly, and Albon. That's a hell of a race. You're in charge of tomorrow's Grand Prix. Let's do a couple more then. Marty says Verstappen, Norris, Piastri, and is it Aites? Aites says Hamilton, Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, DNF. Very interesting. Dell says Perez, Ricciardo, Sargent is so bold. I'm pretty sure the race and the rest of the season and maybe F1 as a whole would be cancelled because there would be many deaths, or at least certainly many injuries. They'd be off for a while, wouldn't they? Jack Chambers, Piastri, Ricciardo, and Russell. Nick says Oppenheimer definitely worth watching, but no spoilers. Yeah, fair enough. Why is everyone talking about that movie? I don't know. It'll drive you mad. It'll be like the Taylor Swift thing again. Crofty won't let it go. You know, he's like a dog with a bone sometimes. But yeah, I want to see Oppenheimer, definitely. It's my kind of film. I like... Oh, that sounds a bit boring when I say it, but you know what I mean. But like the historic films, but I also really like a disaster movie as well. And yes, the Barbie movie. It's comedy, isn't it? It's supposed to be daft. I love a daft film as well. Historical drama, I like that. Yes, that'll do. Historical drama, that's the phrase I'm looking for. I like that kind of thing. I'm a big fan of history. It's why, you may have noticed in F1, I've got, I'm not great with the technical stuff in F1, and I will often forget things from a race I literally just watched, but I can pretty much tell you what happened in most races in 1997, like they were yesterday. That's the kind of thing I like my history. So, yeah. But anyway, how was Merck's pace in practice? Does Hamilton have a chance? I didn't. That's one for the chat. I didn't actually pay enough attention to practice, not because I didn't want to watch it. We had a lot of stuff to crack on with. So, do you watch YouTube? If so, Simon Whistler. I do watch YouTube, Raoul, but oh, right. I want to say Kevin Hill is one that I watch a lot of, because he does some historical stuff, does tours and things, doesn't he? And talks about things like that in history. So I do watch quite a bit of him. I think it's Kevin Hill. I'm sure it is. But yeah, I'll check that one out because I need to find somebody who's good with that kind of thing. Yeah. I think we're going to wrap it up there though, because I'm running out of things to say. Which we're not running out. There's lots I could say. There's lots I could sit here and talk about. But it's not F1 related, and I don't think you want to hear it. So it's if we ever have to rebrand, I'll just call it the S word, and I'll just sit here and talk to you about, I don't know. My life's so boring, probably nothing other than F1, but you get the point. We could wander off anywhere, then we do anyway. But Hamilton was 4th on average, 124 on his 12-lap run. Thank you, Raoul. So yeah, so not bad. They've got good race pace, but 4th is, I assume Raoul, that's behind Red Bulls and possibly a McLaren on race pace, but we'll see. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, but I think we'll round up there. Unless any more questions super quickly that are absolute burning questions that I simply must answer before I disappear or the universe is going to explode. That's all very dramatic. Just check I've done all my super chats. Thank you to Henry for your super chat earlier. Thank you to the several super chats from Not From 63rd, and thank you as well to just changing my name for your super chat earlier as well. Really appreciate your support, and to everyone who's joined me tonight, this evening, everyone who's dropped a like, please do drop a like. That'd be awesome. James Rich, that's it now, I'll call you James Rich forever, says stream during summer break. Yes, I want to do some F1 Manager streams in the summer break a few times a week, but also I'm going to see if I can get a couple of those midweek ones that we do, the Let's Talk ones with We had Nate on, Lawrence on as well. Get some journalists on. Let's even do some of those. The odd Sunday stream as well, probably. I won't disappear for the summer break. I never do. A lot of you do, which is fair enough. You do over the winter, and that's fine. I don't blame you. There's a lot of F1 to soak up, but I will still be here doing stuff. So support is massively appreciated. Holt, your new favourite category. Where will Ricciardo finish? I'm still going to go with 12th, Red Raven. And I'm not going to do where did Ricciardo finish. I've come up with something else. I'm going to alternate it between drivers every week. And I'm going to get you guys to pick in the comments and let me know what you think in previews. Where will insert driver here finish? But I'm going to call it something else per driver. I don't know what it's going to be yet. But yeah, I'm going to go with 12th. I'm going to go with 12th. Dell, behave. Don't make me laugh. I've got to do that. I've got to round off yet. Have you been watching the F2 and F3s? Says Omi. Yes, I have. Watched. I kind of have F3 on in the background, but I watch F2 a bit more intently. Is that what I mean, intently? Or I pay more attention to it, is what I'm saying. But I'm watching at the minute. I don't know what has happened to me. I used to be like one of these. Not only Formula One, I'd always watch the stuff like F2, but I've really got into F3 this year a lot more. I'm massively into IndyCar this year, weirdly, and Super Formula. Watching Liam Lawson over there, doing a cracking job. Great race. Last weekend in Fuji? Yeah, great race for another win. Spoiler alert. Yeah. So I'm watching a lot more racing this year. That's what I'm going to ask you before I go. There we go. I'm going to do it. I was going to say it for tomorrow. I'm going to do it now because it's the Waffle stream, so why not? Whenever I talk on this channel or talk to people in general about IndyCar drivers moving to Formula One, the majority of things, the majority name that people seem to throw around, the name that the majority of people seem to throw around is Colton Herta. It's Herta this and Herta that, and AlphaTauri wanted Herta, and everyone's talking about Colton Herta, and I'm sure he's a fantastic driver. I'm not trying to dump on him in any way, shape, or form, but why are more people not talking about Alex Ruddy Palou? Why are more people? Why am I not hearing his name everywhere when it comes to a driver moving to Formula One from IndyCar? Did you see last time out in Toronto what he did with the front wing hanging on by stickers, basically? Was he 15th on the grid? Finishing P2 with a car that was falling apart? Not to mention the fact that in a series that people keep telling me never gets dominated, is getting absolutely dominated. I mean, it's crazy to me. Like nothing against Colton Herta, nothing against anybody else in that series. But if you're talking about an IndyCar driver moving to Formula One, surely top of that list, based solely on performance, has got to be Alex Palou. I know there are commercial reasons. You know, AlphaTauri might want an American driver because we've got 3 races in the States now, and that might be a great idea, and maybe there's something they can do there with him. But also Alex Palou has got a super license, so that ticks that one as well. So I just don't understand. Is there a reason? That's what I'm asking you in chat. Is there a reason, if you watch IndyCar, please tell me or let me know in the comments later why he's not mentioned more, or am I just not looking in the right places to see his name more? It just feels like when I ask the question, it's Herta this and Herta that. Weird. Yeah, and Marcus Ericsson, Indy 500 winner, absolutely. And just very quickly while we're on other series, shout out to Christian Lundgaard as well for his performance in Toronto. That was mind-blowing, actually. He's doing a cracking job. Yeah, I don't know. With Ford coming in there is a chance that Red Bull Racing and AlphaTauri might take on a USA driver, says Blackhawk. So that's why I think Herta will be a name thrown around in the next few years, with the link to AlphaTauri. Yeah, I don't know if there's a reason behind it. Let me know later if you're watching this later, but I just think he should be getting a lot more love than he is doing from people. He's been fantastic this year, and like I say, Toronto was just ridiculous. But on that note, I'm going to go and order some food. Order some food. Oh, cheeky. I'm going to cook something from scratch with lots of ingredients. I'm not going to go and order something off an app for some food, and then I'm going to go and watch the IndyCar. So I will let you guys go. It has been an app. So that was all I wanted to say. There was something else I was going to say, which I might say for tomorrow on George Russell. It's not anything nasty or anything like that, but just I had a moment yesterday, I think it was, or Thursday, when I realised who George Russell was or what George Russell was. Which sounds stupid because George Russell's the Mercedes Formula One driver, but he reminds me of somebody. So if I was at school with him, I know exactly the kind of person he'd be. But anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm leaving this here before I get myself in trouble. I might do it tomorrow, remind me. But that is it for this one. Thank you so much for coming out for this Saturday Waffle. Like I say, if it's not your kind of thing, that's absolutely fine. You don't need to give me a load of grief for it later. I know I know that the waffle isn't for everybody, but I enjoy doing it. It's nice to sit after qualifying and just chat away with you. And I'll be doing the same tomorrow, a bit more structured, I suppose you could say, tomorrow for the race reaction. We'll go through the order. I am solo for this one. I think I will be for Belgium as well, unless there's anybody out there in the creator podcasty world who's listening who is free tomorrow and fancies to go, or next week specifically, but I'll probably be solo, but that's fine. You're here for me, so it's all right. I assume you're here for me, otherwise you'd be somewhere else, but that's not the point. Anyway, shut up, Sean. Please do leave a like before you go. Would really appreciate that. 320 still here, 137 likes. Let's get that well over 150. That would be massively appreciated. Please do subscribe as well. Like I say, lots to come. Race reaction tomorrow, and then all the same next weekend for the final race before the summer break. I won't cry. It's fine. I've got lots to do in summer break, so it's okay. And F1 Manager streams. That launches. Is it early access next week? I know it launches for everybody on the 31st. But there will be some F1 Manager streams as well. Thank you for your feedback on that one, as and when I can squeeze them in. So please do subscribe. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.